In this tutorial, we will be drawing a beautiful Christmas bubble, and I chose this reference with a red bubble because I think the red is the color that screams Christmas. So to start with, I have prepared my sheet of paper. Again, I'm using pastel mat as we did previously, and I will need something to actually help me draw out the round shape and not to go freehand and make my crooked bubble. I'm going to use tape that I'm using to actually hold my paper in place. So with a red pastel pencil, I'm going to start drawing out my bubble. I'm going to locate it just a bit to the right, not in center, but a bit to the right to create a more pleasing composition. And we will also need that tip to actually hold our bubble kind of upright. That is going to be placed here. So if we place it just a bit to the right, it's going to balance the composition out. If we were to place it here, it would seem as if the bubble was falling out of the page. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to trace around my tape. It's a little cheat here, but we need to make sure that our bubble looks nice. And here I need to decide where the center line is going to be, so I'm going to draw out the central axis of my bubble. That way I will have that part where my bubble is connected to this bit that holds it up on the Christmas tree. So here we will have that neck going out, and then we can use a yellow pencil just so that we don't contaminate the yellow part with the red. And actually we can make it just a bit larger. Went too far. So this is a great medium because you can always go back and correct it. So I need this edge to be on the same level as my bubble here. So here I need a straight line, so in fact I went too far. Like so. Okay, so we need to pay attention to the fact that our bubble is lying flat on a tabletop, and it will be reflecting everything that is around it. So if you have Christmas lights there, in your reference, for example, if you want to do it yourself, there will be Christmas lights reflecting, all the room reflecting, and here in this composition there are some little thingies reflecting in it, which are not that important, like those little fluffy balls. And most important thing is that we show the shape of our bubble by adding the reflections of the light, as in the windows. You can see that they go more curved the closer they get to the edge of the bubble, and they straighten almost completely out here in the center. So to start with, we will start just by applying our first layer of color, and for that I will be using soft pastels. So I'm going to start with my local color, which is red, and I'm going to apply it everywhere on my bubble, but be careful not to go out of the shape that we drew already. So I'm applying it everywhere. As this is pastel matte, it's going to allow us to apply many layers on top. If you're doing this on a non-sanded surface like Canson Meton or Ingress papers, then you have to be more careful, and you will have to work in a slightly different manner. You will have to hold back on those lightest areas, so you'll have to go around those lightest areas. But as we're working on pastel matte, we can easily then blend our lightest areas into our darker areas here. So I'm covering all of my bubble, and now what I can do is I can gently rub this layer of pastel into the paper. So this is my first layer. As usual in pastels, we're always working in layers, like in oil paint. So now I can start and go into my lighter colors, and I have this brighter color, which I will be placing here where the tabletop is reflecting, and also here on the edge, and gently rub it in. So we need to keep in mind that our bubble is all round. Next I'm going to go in with this pinkish color and start adding more of those highlights. blending it out, sorry, blending it out and moving in these circular directions. So even by the way we apply the pastel, we're showing the shape of our object. So I'm moving in these circular directions. Okay, here we have a bit of that light hitting this part where the bubble is attached to this holding thingy, like so. And now we can already start to introduce our darker colors. So here I definitely see this pattern showing the wall, where the wall kind of curves together with our bubble. It's becoming darker here. And also there is an almost straight mark line here. I'm just going to separate the two walls reflecting in the bubble. Then here we have some dark objects reflecting also, like so. And here on the edge we will have that edge darker. And as our bubble is shiny, we're working here with a lot of blending, like so. Already you can see the shape is kind of coming to life. Now again I'm moving into my lighter value. This is an even lighter pink. And I'm creating that bright edge which catches the highlight from the window here. Then on the edge here, in between the dark and the light, we also will have a bit of that light reflecting. It's very interesting to draw these glossy objects. They have these beautiful patterns in them. Here I'm creating the reflection of that window and blending it out. This is the reflection of the window on the table. Next we can use our very light value to create, so this is the part that we need to be careful with. So here I'm going to start adding those window reflections, and the closer they get to the center, the straighter they will look, and the further away they are from the center, the more rounded they will have the shape. Like so. Then there's the separation in the windows here. Like so. You don't have to copy it identical to what you see in the reference. It has to be somewhat believable. Okay. Now with this darkest red, we can start adding those darker accents. Like here, and there's going to be also the shadow under this connection bit here. And then in between the windows I also see some of those darker lines, like so. Then we have something dark reflecting here, and for now we're just laying it in with our dark red, like so. Some darker accents here, and here towards the bottom it has a shadow on it, so we're adding that one as well. And here I love this beautiful door that has this rounded shape to it, the reflection of the door over here. And this edge, once again, as I said, we need to make it darker to show the curvature of the form here. Okay, next we can pass on to the black, and you can use either black or dark blue or any other very dark color for this, or you can also use pastel pencil, but I think for the bigger shapes we can use a pastel stick, because it's going to add a richer mark. So I have my black here, and I'm going to start adding those details reflecting. So we don't need to draw everything out, we're just showing that there's some reflection of objects that are on the foreground. So our bubbles will be reflecting all the world around them. Be careful not to blend them into the lightest areas of your bubble, otherwise it's going to create mud. So here we also have just a bit darkening this area up, so we create this impression of the bubble curving. And here I want to add a bit more of this darkness just to intensify the curvature of the bubble here. Then over here we have that wall that goes almost straight, so this is the corner of the two walls and it goes almost straight. And then here, again, imagine as if you're drawing on top of the bubble, so it's curved, and you need to add those marks in the same way. Here and here, this door frame will also be curved, and just blend it in. Okay, so now that we're done with this, if you're having trouble, another thing, if you're having trouble blending things, tiny things out, like for example here with your finger, you can always use either a pastel pencil or a color shaper as well. So I want to take a white now, and I want to shape out those reflections a bit, make them a bit sharper, and as there's already a pastel layer here, it's going to mix in with the pastel color that there is underneath, and it's not going to give me a bright white, but it's going to give me a blend of the two colors. Here we can add a bit more of that reflection, and here I see that there is this highlight happening, so I'm adding it with a pastel pencil here and just correcting the shape. Went in with my black, so this I have to be very careful here, so not to contaminate the colors. So if you did drag another color into the light area, for example, you can always go and rub it out. And also I will need a black pencil just to create this edge here. With a pastel stick it's a bit more difficult. With a pencil it gives you sharper marks and you create a more defined edge to your bubble. So if you've gone out of the borders of your bubble, you can always go in and correct the shape with a kneaded eraser, like so. So also here I'm correcting this shape like so. Now we can go into our yellows, and I will be using warm yellows to create that part where the bubble is actually held by the thread. So here we need to create that ellipse. So when drawing ellipses, you always determine where's the central axis, and then perpendicular to the central axis we will have the ellipse of this cylinder here. So I'm going to use my warm yellows, and first I will cover all the area like we did with the bubble. And blend it in. Why am I blending it in? I'm blending it in because when I press the pastel pigment into the paper, it allows me to layer more colors on top. So I'm making sure that my hands are clean also, don't drag red into this. Okay, so with the yellow we can correct the shape over here where those parts that connect to the bowl attach. Immediately we go in with the black. We can create that shadow bit where we see the shadow kind of creating between the folds of this thing. So underneath where it's connected to the ball, it's going to create those shadow bits. Okay, next what we need is a lighter yellow. And I'm going to go with this lighter yellow here and create that edge that I see facing towards us. And also here it catches some highlights, like so. Went out too far, so we can always correct the shape. Okay, and I'm gonna take a brown pencil, so because it's very difficult to do it with a pastel stick at this size. And with a brown pencil, I'm going to start adding more details. So here, where we have the shape kind of folding, we will have a darker edge on this plane of our cylinder. And then also, so by doing it first with the brown and then going over with the black, it doesn't look flat, this part here. Okay, and now what we need is a cast shadow. So we will need a cast shadow from our bubble here. So I'm going to add a bit of black right under the bubble. And then with a gray we will pull it out. So I'm going to use a gray here to kind of blend the two together. And one thing you can do is I'm going to use this red-brown. I'm going to add a bit of this color into here, into the shadow, so our shadow doesn't look flat and it doesn't look colorless. So this red-brown has enough red in it to actually create this impression of the shadow receiving reflected light from the bubble. So you can gray it out more if it seems too red, for example, or too brown. Darken it. Remember also that the darkest area is right where the object meets the surface where it stands on. So we're creating that shadow here, adding a bit more of this black just to darken it up a bit. And you can see that by dragging it out, so we have kind of a very, we have a diffused light here and the shadow is not very precise. So we don't have that oval shape of the shadow on the ground. And also on here, just a bit of that black where the shadow meets, where the plane, the flat plane meets our object. And here we go into, can add a bit of yellows also here to indicate the reflection of light shining into the shadow from our object, and a bit of those reds. And now we blend them out again. And this way, if it's too colorful, you can always dial it down with a gray. So I'm using pencils here just because it's a lot easier to control a sharp tip. Like so. Darkening it up just a bit because we have quite a dark paper, so we need the shadow to look slightly darker than the paper. And there we go. Our beautiful bubble is almost ready. Now, the last touches that we need to do is we need to add those highlights. So here I see this beautiful highlight happening where the shape meets. So the round shape and this neck thingy here. I'm gonna just add a bit of this brighter red here. And also the highlight, so I want this highlight to stand out, just to indicate where the light is shining from. And that is it. Our bubble is all ready.